Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Hello, whenever you're listening. It is Friday, August 15th on the Her Hoop Stats podcast. I am Jamie Steyer Johnson alongside of Brittany Carper. And unlike most of the times that Brittany and I are chatting, no games last night in the WNBA. And no games in the WNBA and a back-to-back for me personally as far as hosting here. So we had to figure out something to talk about. So I'm not just spinning my wheels, repeating myself as I may be somewhat prone to do. BMX says you're welcome. It's all good, man, because guess what? We have a great topic to discuss today that I'm very excited about because it's something very close to Brittany and my hearts, and that is coaching. We're going to talk coaches today. We're getting down to the last quarter or so of the season. And that means that you can start talking WNBA awards a little bit more seriously. And this is something we've discussed pretty consistently, I think, throughout the season, just because, especially with the amount of new coaches, that certainly contributes. And so we said, you know what, let's talk coach of the year. Let's talk just kind of results for some of these coaches. As we know, some unexpected things have occurred across the W this year. So let's just get into it, Brittany.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, when I'm saying, okay, most surprising results perhaps for a coach or most impressive job so far, who's coming to mind first and foremost for you?
Immediately, I think it would be hard to ignore Natalie Nakase for the Golden State
Mhm.
Valkyries. Looking back, I was doing some research. They are one of the only, well, they'll be the only winning expansion franchise. The last time it was the most wins for an expansion franchise was 1999. That was Minnesota Lynx. They went 15-17. The Valkyries currently sit at 17-15. And we've talked so many times about this, but just what's impressive to me is what they've done with their roster and have been able to win games without really a true superstar, but a bunch of six women that have really bought into, what she's done. So to me, that was the one that, really pops off, and jumps out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's unreal, honestly, to see what Coach Nakase has done. When you're coming into the season, you're saying, I mean, I thought that they were in a position to perhaps be more successful than people were giving them credit for,
Hmm.
but that's mostly because they were getting zero credit whatsoever. I liked a lot of the moves they made. I liked a lot of the roster they had put together. I didn't love some of their last cuts, but most of them came back around eventually anyway. And so there's always room for that. But I did not anticipate anything close to what they've done. I'm not gonna claim
Yeah.
that kind of credit, being really the most successful expansion franchise, not just in WNBA history, but very well maybe the most successful first year expansion franchise in any domestic league ever. Like,
Hmm.
they're currently, as you said, have a winning record. They are very much in the playoff race. If they end up in the playoffs, I mean, this is historic. They're also doing things so well to set themselves up for success long term. I think that it shows a tremendous understanding of the way that the WNBA operates, having that experience in Las Vegas and also having that experience on the professional level, having been on the NBA side too. Just understanding the business of it and
Hmm.
going out, and their roster construction was so smart from not only a playing perspective, but also from a longevity of, we're going to pick up these players that have been perhaps a little bit underrated, perhaps a little bit, in our eyes, underutilized over the years. And that contributes to having the ability to maintain your team going forward in a time where you can't really assure that that's going to be the case with the CBA. So this was a tough time to be coming into the league and a tough time to be a first time head coach in the
Mhm.
W. But I mean, she's done an unreal job and just so fun to watch their style of play, to watch. I think her mannerisms are so fun. Like she's fiery, but like she has this base level of like very calm as well and just feels so relatable. Like the way that Natalie Nakase reacts to things. I said the other day on social media, I was like, her incredulous smile when a call doesn't go the way she wants to, or when an explanation is not quite hitting home from an official, kills me
Yep.
every time.
Yeah, it's funny. There was that one meme going around with her just kind of like staring at the official, and that to me just like encompasses who you see on the sideline on a nightly basis with her.
Yeah, I also think that it's cool because she's also super young, especially
Mhm,
as far as like head coaches go. She's 45 years old. And so there's so many like really historic elements to, her being named head coach, being the first Asian American head coach in the WNBA, and then being so young. And I really enjoy her. I think that it's a very kind of different personality than we see a lot of times. And it's indicative of the fact that Golden State has just done things in a really different way, and it's paying off for them big time. So I've certainly become a massive, massive Natalie Nakase fan. As we've also discussed, I think there's mounting evidence that what she brought to Las Vegas was really, really significant in her couple of years there.
mhm,
And as we both know, assistants do so much of the work behind the scenes. And so sometimes it takes making that jump to actually get the recognition for what you did in
mhm.
the past. But I mean, all that, and then her players obviously love her, like
Yep,
just love playing for her. And I think that is one of the most important things you can do is build a culture, build relationships with your players. And that kind of takes me to one of my big coaches that I've watched and really enjoyed following this season, which is Carl Smesko. And what he's done in Atlanta. First of all, now into the second seed
yeah.
as of right now in the WNBA. That is
Yeah.
that's pretty dang impressive.
Very, very much so, and definitely different situations when you're talking about an expansion, and then him stepping into the dream. But a first time professional coach, and I went back. Atlanta's last winning season was 2018. Right now, they're 10 games over 500, and I've said this a couple times, but just the style of basketball that he's brought to the league. And I think too, he's adjusted to what the league is. And I think that's been really impressive from a standpoint of a coaching evolution, because sometimes coaches can be really stubborn and make it, all about what they do and how they run stuff. And I've seen kind of the involvement over the course of the season in terms of what his roster looks like and how he utilizes what he has.
Yeah, I think that it again, this is a team that coming into the season, I was I had a lot of questions. It was very similar to Golden State for me in that I saw elements of something that could work,
Hmm.
but it was very unproven. And with Atlanta, my biggest thing was Carlos Mesco is not a first time head coach. He's a first time professional head coach. And so he had a system pretty much down to a science at the college level, at the mid-major college level, no less, where you can get really creative with it and
Hmm.
have a lot of success, which he sure did. And I wasn't sure how that translated to the WNBA. And I really wasn't sure how that translated with the roster they had put together. And so I was very curious. There were a lot of people, I think, that were ready to say, well, this won't work. And I'm always like, hey, let's wait and see, like
Mhm.
I know what goes on behind the scenes to some degree as far as the coaching goes. And so I'm like, hey, I'm always game to like let it play out.
Mhm.
And I thought what they had put together was a great roster on its face, but it was just how are you going to utilize it? And so they've had some of those ups and downs for sure, but the stride they've hit, and to do so with significant injuries. You
Yep.
lose Ryan Howard for extended periods of time. You lose BG for stretches. You lose Jordan Canada
Canada.
multiple times now, especially Jordan Canada missed the start of the season, comes back, really gets into such a good rhythm, and now she's hurt again. My heart breaks for her. I'm
Yep.
glad it sounds like it's a shorter term
Yeah.
thing, hopefully, but to just continue to make those adjustments to me is crazy. And that again, that's experience and that's something that can come from experience on a different level in the NCAA. You do make those adjustments. And so he, as I said, I think preseason put together such a tremendous coaching staff around him that
Y
has really varied experience. I've said before, I know Brandy Poole, that's an assistant on his staff, and she has had varied experience across the league, has been in the W for a long time. I am a huge fan of hers personally, and also just knowing her experience is super, super valuable. And he brought in people from a lot of different areas, didn't just say, hey, okay, I'm going to bring my staff with me from the college level. Like that would be, I think, for a lot of people, a level of comfort. But he said, no,
Mhm.
I need to bring in these differing backgrounds and this differing experience. And so I have been just so impressed with the adjustments made over the course of the season to his own philosophy from the past. And then within the team, I think it's really, really impressive to do what they've done and to continue getting better, even through all of the injuries they've had and the changes they've had to kind of their team composition.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have much to add on that just because you kinda nailed it with him and what they've done, but certainly this position they put themselves, he should be in that conversation. I don't foresee the next 4 weeks, a big decline in what they've been doing, so, certainly I think he would be there, towards the end.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I was thinking back, I'm like, okay, when you talk about first year head coaches, obviously there's a lot of different markers of success,
Mhm,
and wins and losses are not the only one. Truly, that for a single season, yes, that is
mhm.
the number one marker of success. But as we know, building long term, that isn't always the case. So Becky Hammond had probably the most successful singles debut season as a rookie head coach when
Mhm.
you talk about a championship season, when you talk about a 26 and 10 record, that's very
Yeah.
impressive. It's going to be pretty hard to top that. But both of these coaches that we've already discussed, Mesco and Akase, are having absurdly successful debut seasons in their own right for, as we talked about, very different reasons. And they're not even the only coach of the year candidates. They're not the
No.
only rookie coaches having these incredible seasons. It's just
Yep.
it's been a good year for coaches in the WNBA, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's been so many, good transitions. I think even if you look at Sydney Johnson with the Mystics, Lynn
Mhm.
Roberts with the Sparks, like they've both certainly put their mark on those franchises. So I think if you're kind of following what they've been doing over the course of the season, you're certainly excited and you see what each team is bringing to the table and kind of what their plan is and what their vision is long term for both of those franchises as well.
And I want to take a quick detour. So for me personally, my top candidates for coach of the year are the two we've discussed. That would
Hmm.
be Carlos Mesco having the dream in the second seed right now, and then Natalie Nakase with an expansion franchise being in the playoff race. The third coach I think I would currently put in there is not new, and that's Cheryl Reeve.
Hey, great minds think alike. Those are the exact three I had written down. So
Okay, yeah, it's almost like we again have a little bit of a background here. And so
yeah,
Cheryl, first of all, I want to say coach of the year conversations are so complicated, just like any award, because at a certain point when you have sustained success for so long, it starts working against you because
hmm
people simply start to expect it.
yep,
I've seen this firsthand many a time.
yes, yep,
And where you start to not get the credit that you probably deserve for some of the situations you work through because people think, well, they're a great coach. They've done it before. They're going to continue to do it,
yep,
even when the circumstances are always so different. And so, Coach Reeve, the Lynx are on an unbelievable tear. Again, I had very high hopes for the Lynx. I loved what they put together. I loved the consistency they were able to bring back from last year. If you told me, yeah, Nafisa Collier is going to have a couple of stretches where she misses several games and the Lynx are still going to have an over 80% win percentage 3/4 of the way through the year, like I would not have anticipated that.
no, yeah, certainly
And
not.
they're just adjusting like crazy. They've been so impressive.
Yeah, and that to me is why she should be in the conversation. I mean, looking at the standings now, they have a 6-game lead over the second place team in what is arguably one of the more competitive WNBA seasons from top to bottom. I mean, I wouldn't even look last year. The 8th seed in the playoffs was the Dream, who were 15 and 25. Now, this year, you currently have 7 teams over 500, if I had my math right there. And certainly that number, I could see all 8 teams in the playoffs over 500 or right around there. And so to me, to be in the position that the Lynx are, she certainly should be in that conversation, given, like you said, Nafisa missing time, and just kind of how the season has been with the longer schedule and the how it's played out with the back-to-backs and certainly things like that. So just what the Lynx have done this year has been just really impressive from the standpoint of winning games in terms of what their roster has looked like at different times. But it's a testament to, like you said, what she has built there. And sometimes you do take that for granted as fans and media and just viewers. And so I hope that when it's all said and done, that is really looked at, because I certainly think she should be in that conversation.
And you referenced the lead they have on the second place team right now, which is 6 games. And I've used this marker many times on this podcast, so people are maybe sick of me referring back to it, but I think it's worth continuing to drive home. The difference between the Lynx and the second place team right now is 6 games. That is the same difference between the second place team in the league and the ninth place team in the league. 6
Mhm.
games currently
Yep.
separate the Atlanta Dream and the LA Sparks, who are sitting at 9th. That gap is absurd. First of all, it tells us how close the rest of the playoff race is,
Yes.
which is
Which
very
is
exciting.
exciting. Yes. Yes.
But it also tells you just how dominant the Lynx have been and that they've had a couple of off games, but it's literally a couple, like 5 losses, 32 games into the season. And that's through, I think, probably the toughest stretch of their season, which was going into the All-Star break with how many games they played in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
Now they've finally gotten a little bit of a break. Hopefully they're rested, recuperated, because they had a whopping 6 days off basically unprecedented in the WNBA before
The
their
scheduling gods again, right?
yeah, and I'm sure New York is sitting there looking at it like, yeah, man, that's
Mhm.
exactly what we needed when we're already injured is to have Minnesota actually get some time off
Right,
before we
right.
see them again. But
Mhm.
I digress. I think that yeah, the Lynx have been tremendous. And let me also say just the coaching strategy. There is not a coach that uses the challenge better than Cheryl Reeve. And a lot of that also goes to her staff. I'm going to pull up their last name so that I get like the full shout out, but I know it's
Mhm.
Celia and Maddie on their staff that have the tablets that, first of all, broadcasts, especially when they're the in house broadcasts for Minnesota, are so good at showing the bench when they're discussing challenges. And you know when they're discussing challenges because it is almost always going to be in the last 3 minutes or so of the fourth quarter. They save those challenges. Have you noticed that like they save the challenge probably better than anyone else?
Yeah, and that to me, like sometimes I'm watching a game and they want to challenge in the first or second quarter. And don't get me wrong, every possession in the game matters. I'm not dismissing that, but when you know that like a close game in the fourth quarter, or there's going to be a pivotal moment in a stretch of the game, especially in the second half, most notably a fourth quarter, that is like your ticket, the golden ticket. So I love that they do that, because when you only get one and if it's not successful, I mean, you just can't afford to waste those on certain things. And so I love that they do that. I get very frustrated when coaches use them, especially in moments where, to me, I don't seem to think it's a big deal. I'm like, okay, let the play go. Now, if it's a questionable foul, maybe to one of your better players, it would be a third foul or something early in the
Mhm.
game where you feel like that could change the momentum. I certainly understand that. But like how they use that is very important. And I think, it's won them games. And so,
Yes.
yeah, so like when you have that opportunity to use that, save it, because it could change the game.
It's been, to my count, twice this year that the Lynx have won a game almost solely off of 2 late challenges.
Hmm.
I mean, the big one being the overtime game against Atlanta back in June, and then another one recently, that's not coming to me, but it's happened twice,
It was just the other
and
night, I think, with Dejanay,
yeah.
right? Yeah, I
Yes,
can't remember who
yes,
they were
that's what it
playing,
was.
but
Yes. And it's Celia Marfone is their director of video and player development coach, and then Maddie Schiller is their data scientist and player personnel manager. And I think that there's a lot of it that is exactly as you said. They save them to the end. They're very intentional with when they use their challenges. And a lot of that is because over the course of a game, every play matters over the course of a game. There's a lot of emphasis placed on late game situations, obviously. The bigger thing with the late game situations is that you don't have the time to recover after. It's not that the points mean more, it's that you don't have the time to recover. And so over the course of a game, let's be honest, there's going to be more than one or two calls that are not correct. And
mhm.
so it's about figuring out when that's going to be the most impactful. And when you only have maybe 30 seconds, maybe less to make up for that situation afterwards, that's going to be a lot more consequential than something that happens in the first quarter, regardless of whether it's correct or not. And so you made the exact point, which is earlier challenges, if it's in the case of a foul that would maybe take someone out of rotation for you, that I think is generally not the worst use, and a lot of that I do think goes back again to data on how frequently your players are fouling out, how much you can trust your players to continue playing through fouls. But And also the matchup on like, okay, is this a really foul prone matchup? Are they probably going to get another foul regardless?
Yeah.
But to save them to the end just tells you that, again, it's backed up by the data and they are basically never wrong. Like at this
Mhm.
point, I know that I am thinking when Minnesota challenges a play, I am just waiting for the official to say that it's been overturned because I literally cannot remember the last time they challenged a play that they didn't win. And I think a lot of that also comes down to understanding that if it's your first challenge and you lose it, you're essentially losing 2 challenges. So I feel like they wait until they are nearly positive they're going to win the challenge to even use the first. Then the second, if you're a little bit more daring, it's also a timeout essentially
Mhm.
for you. And so even if you lose the timeout, you get to use it right there. But I this is going to send me down a whole other rabbit hole. If anyone knows of trackers on challenges, please tell me. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it myself. And I don't know if I have the time, but it's not going to leave my head until I do it. So if you know of them, please tell me. But
Yeah.
otherwise, we're going to figure it out. But I don't know that they've lost a first challenge, at least in the latter half of the season.
Yeah, and I think and this would be another interesting thing, and now when I watch, I'll pay more attention, but I also think their team knows they're probably not going to use them as early because you
Yes.
rarely see them where you see almost every team and player in the league, like, after, the first 2 minutes of a game, a play happens, and it's like, okay, I feel like when you watch the Lynx, you don't see that as much. So, certainly, there are conversations probably even within their team, like, hey, we're not, unless you like it is a game changing play that we think it's just not going to be used in the first half or, certainly up until the fourth quarter where the game is a little bit more on the line.
And so they're not even like, it's not even in their mind. It's not even a concern. And frankly, we sometimes see players get a little bit distracted, it
Hmm.
seems, by wanting a coach to challenge or being frustrated about a call being missed or incorrect. Very valid. But I think that also with the Lynx, there's just this element of maturity and control where it starts from the top down, where Cheryl is just very level. She's intense, but she's very level.
Hmm.
And that extends to the rest of the team as well. And they all trust each other. They trust the coaching staff. They trust each other as players. And so they don't get hung up on any one play. And
Right.
that just trickles down into everything else, including the challenge situation. And so I just feel like that is one of the most indicative things of how absurdly well run the Lynx organization is as a whole. And also a shout out to, again, Celia and Maddie. I had a friend. I said I think they need like a stand name, and what got pitched to me was Stem Buds.
I love
And
it.
so I really like that a lot.
Hmm.
I might start using that. So Regina, shout out. I really like it. I also love the trust where like I don't think I've ever seen Cheryl even like make a motion until she turns around. She gives them the moment to review. And then if they say yes, it's instant. Like
Hmm.
as a head coach, you have to trust your staff. You have to have really clear delineations of whose job is what. And that is so clearly their bag. And everyone like celebrates with them when they get it right. Like it's so fun. Like it's a little game within the game of like, we
Yep.
got it. Yeah.
When all eyes go on you and that's kind of your one job in the game, you really hope you do get it right. And so certainly there's a certain amount of pressure on them in that moment too. It's such a quick snapshot decision you have to make. And so again, I'm very interested like you in what the challenge success rate is across the board kind of for each team in the league. So something that hopefully we can get to the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to circle back on that for sure. Before we're done for today, I want to just quick hit on some of the other coaches around the league who we've seen certainly some aspects of success. I think that at this point the top 3 candidates are pretty well separated, but there's enough time I think for for some others to make a case. Some of the ones that have been discussed over the course of the season, certainly one of them being Nate Tibbetts, second year coach. And Phoenix has certainly struggled some lately. I don't think they've quite maintained the level of consistency to compete with the others, especially like at Atlanta Dream, where they've been fairly neck and neck in the standings a lot of the season, and now have sort of separated themselves. Well, not separated themselves. They are currently ahead, I should say,
Yes.
because there's not enough separation for that to be permanent whatsoever. But I feel like what we saw earlier in the season from Phoenix was consistency in the face of consistent winning in the face of a lot of injuries. Reintegrating some of the pieces that they had been missing has been up and down, which makes sense, is
Mhm.
supernatural. But I do think that that's another team that absolutely has the ability to go on a great run. And again, this is one of those years where it's like you have probably 4, 5, 6 candidates that would be front runners for coach of the year any other
Mhm.
year, but we've just seen such great coaching across the league this season that it's going to be a tight race. But I know there's certainly been very solid elements to Phoenix this season.
Yeah, I think the way they started the season, missing, Sably and Copper for such a long time and doing a lot of what they did with rookies too. I mean, they had rookies playing big minutes, and, that was kind of the discussion too. Could they maintain the level of play? And I don't think they've necessarily dropped too much, but when you're integrating, Sably and Copper back, you're putting people in a little bit different roles. And so I think just the adjustment there, and then the addition of Dewana Bonner, and certainly someone who's had so much experience in the league. And so I think, yes, they're a team that kind of went through that little rough patch, and he kind of fell off the conversation. But like you said, I think they could go on a run here, and they're, putting themselves right back in a position. I mean, they're a game and a half back of the 2 seed. So he could certainly be there at the end in terms of the coach of the year, because what he has done, has been really impressive. So I think, given, there's still 4 weeks left in the season, he certainly has a chance to be in that conversation.
And I'll also say that, as we know, there's not just coach of the year, but there's also executive of the year. And so I think there's a major case for Nick Urin as the executive of the year for putting together the roster that they did with so many rookies coming from overseas, coming
Yep.
domestically with the experience. And so Nick Urin, I think, has a very, very solid case for executive of the year, even if Tibbetts isn't a front runner in the race for coach of the year.
Yep.
And then again, looking over at the Valkyries, I think that Ohima Nyanen is a really great candidate for the Valkyries as far as being the general manager, putting together, again, a very creative roster and having significant success. So those would be kind of my 2 front runners for exec of the year, which gets, I think, overlooked a little bit sometimes, but
Yep.
especially in a season like this when you're putting together a roster in tough situations, a lot of single year deals,
Yep.
negotiations even tougher. And so those 2 I feel like have put together a heck of a roster.
Yeah, and I think both of those franchises are good models going forward in terms of how you can build it with, like you said, rookies domestically, but also internationally, because you haven't seen that, as much. But those two rosters were both heavy in that, and I think that is just, a great way and model for future teams to kind of look at how to blend the experience, maybe not necessarily in the W, but overseas, and then coming in as a rookie per se, but still having that professional experience. So yeah, those would both be my exec picks too, just because I love what both of those rosters have done.
Oh, all right, Brittany. We've kept it fairly concise, I think, for what we're doing. We could talk about every coach extensively, I'm sure, and there'll still be some time for that over the course of the rest of the season. But always nice to have time to sort of pivot and get into the nitty gritty of some of these not totally off court, but not certain game related, not specific matchup related
Yeah.
things, especially with you. So super fun to dive into the coaches. I'm excited to see what we get from the last month or so of the season because, as ESPN is now reminding us consistently, the playoffs start a month from yesterday on
Mhm.
September 14th, which is
Crazy.
crazy. I can't look at calendars right now.
Ugh, I know. I hear you. It's we're back to school a week from yesterday, so it's that time of year you're trying to get back into the bedtimes and the routines of life, and but the students were moving back to campus this week here at Illinois State, so it was super fun because there's just that buzz in the air of fall and all of that, and it's such a great time with the WNBA being so exciting, and definitely looking forward to the playoffs.
In a couple weeks when I'm just babbling and not making sense, I'll just apologize in advance because, yeah, a week from Monday is we're back in school, and that means I'll be starting my master's and teaching college courses for the first time. So
Yeah.
we're not going to think about that.
Yeah, we'll just ignore it, enjoy the
Thinking about the
weekend.
WNBA right now, but it's always super fun to get into this with you, especially talking coaching. Super fun. Brittany, people can find you online at Brittany Carper. Folks, you could find me at JSteyz, JSTEYZ. This Friday, so we will be back Monday on the Her Hoop Stats podcast. We'll have a whole lot to cover because with no games last night, that means we got a whole lot ahead of us this weekend. And as we said, coming down the stretch, last quarter of the season. So with that tight playoff race, these games are all going to matter a whole heck of a lot. So we will catch up with you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you are following Her Hoop Stats on all of your social media platforms. Subscribe to the newsletter, subscribe to our pod, all of that fun stuff. And we will catch you next time.